Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the January 2018 Henderson County Fiscal Court meeting, our first of the new year. We're glad you're with us, and we'll begin as we always do with an invocation. Please stand. Dear Heavenly Father, please watch over us today as we consider the business of the county. We appreciate your blessings, and we're also very glad to have our colleague George Warren back with us today. Please watch over us in the new year. We're glad to have all our friends and residents with us, working for the betterment of Henderson County. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. Amen. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Magistrate Putman.
Here.
Magistrate Warren. Here. Magistrate Alexander.
Here.
Magistrate Todd.
Here.
And Magistrate Wilkerson.
Here.
And we truly are glad to have Magistrate Warren back with us, back in the saddle. Hope you're feeling better. And, ready to get on with the business of the county with a full complement here. Gentlemen, you have before you the December 19, 2017 minutes of Henderson County Fiscal Court meeting. After a period of review, I'll entertain a motion to accept those.
So move.
Motion and a second.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any clarifications, additions, corrections? Please call for a vote.
Magistrate Putman.
Aye.
Magistrate Warren.
Abstain since
Okay.
Yep.
Yes. Magistrate Alexander.
Aye.
Magistrate Todd.
Abstain.
And Magistrate Wilkerson.
Okay. First up, we have an update on the drainage project in Geneva and near the airport that was the subject of a grant request that was made by Fiscal Court to the Delta Regional Authority back in late 2013. This was approximately for $200,000, including and in addition to a match from the county that was approximately $42,000. And here in 2018, we're finally coming up on being able to move forward on this. And I've asked both Buzzy Newman, who helped instigate the application for that grant and is also a member of the Flood Mitigation Board here in the county, as well as Chris Hobgood, attorney for the Airport Board, to give us a briefing on some solutions we've hit upon after a little bit of a challenge getting this project moving forward. So at this moment, I'd like to ask Chris and Buzzy to come forward and give us an update and also brief us on this potential plan. Buzzy?
you don't care, Judge, I will pass out an exhibit that they can follow and answer what you got.
Okay, just the map? Yeah. The map in your packet is what we'll be referring to.
Basically, as the judge said, this grant request came many years ago, and I think at the time I came before the court, we had to request approval to submit the grant to the Delta Regional Authority, and the purpose of the grant was to improve drainage in and around Geneva, specifically the area that drains through the airport property. And so we applied for the grant, we received it. An engineer, Ron Johnson and Associates, was hired to design the project. And one of the first hurdles we ran into was obtaining an easement in order to construct the ditch to Pond Creek. And at that time, the airport was just in the beginning phase of looking at their future plans for the airport. And luckily, through a year of negotiations, the airport was able to obtain the property in which this ditch needed to run through. Then the next obstacle we ran into, there was a sliver of ground between the airport's property and Pond Creek that belonged to a family there in Geneva. And we tried negotiating with those folks on and off over a period of time, and with no luck, we then began discussing the status of the grant with the Delta Regional Authority. And because of the time frame, we were faced with either turning the grant back to the Delta Regional Authority or moving forward. So we met with the judge, the airport, the mayor, to discuss options. We went back to Ron Johnson and Associates and asked if there was any other type of alternative to get this ditch constructed and get it to Pond Creek. And so late last week, our engineer got back with us, came up with an alternative plan to keep the piping of the open ditch, which is in your map, but the last 400 feet of this ditch will include a underground pipe system that will stay on the airport property and within the right-of-way of Trigg Turner Road, thus avoiding the need to go through the last property owner. So we presented this option. We felt like it was the best option to take and continue forward with the grant. And we believe, based upon our previous bid that we received for this ditch project, we hope that this additional work required will fall within the budgeted amount for the grant.
Buzz, would you, can you point on there and show us, those X's on this map, is that the 400 feet you're talking about?
That is correct.
Okay.
And what,
How is the main ditch gonna come to the, is it gonna come down through that line, that looks like pavement kind of line through there?
That is
The
correct.
that's owned by the airport.
That is
And you're
correct.
gonna, and we're gonna dig a ditch down through there.
That is correct. And then where the X begins, we will stop there at that point, which is short of the property line. And then we will install a pipe underground perpendicular to the open ditch, take it directly over to the right-of-way of Trigg Turner Road. Then we'll take it into Pond Creek, there by the bridge.
Okay. So there's gonna be a long ditch down through there
Yes.
on the, I say R as in airport, our property down through there, and it's gonna join, at these X's, it's gonna go underground
Yes, sir.
and then come out at Pine Creek.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The other important thing to understand, the open ditches that are in Geneva, some of that all, or some if not, probably 60 to 70% of that area in and around Geneva drains through the airport. And what we're proposing to do is provide a shortcut to take this ditch directly to Pond Creek rather than the meandering way that it does now, which basically runs underneath the airport runway.
Mm-hmm.
And remind me, the utility of this is not only to help keep the airport dry, but it will serve to better drain the community of Geneva.
That is correct, and that was the basis for awarding the grant.
Where will this ditch start? I don't see on this map. Will it at 130? What point at 136? I assume, is that correct?
Actually, what it will do, the ditch will run through the Dawson property. Then it will take a hard right across Trigg Turner Road and run parallel to the taxiway of the airport. And then there's an open ditch that runs between the airport property and 136. And that's the area in which it will stop and help that drainage through.
Mm-hmm. The border of where those houses are and all that come right around through there.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Chris, I would suppose that the airport board is in full support of
Yes.
this alternative.
Absolutely. This is more logistical than legal now. We've managed to keep it all in county right away and property that's owned half by the county and half by the city.
And this is entirely separate, just so everybody knows, entirely separate issue than the airport runway expansion project. It's not tied in any way to that, other than the fact that the particular family that we've been trying to work with over the last couple of years also happens to be involved in some of the negotiations on the runway extension, but this is completely separate, correct?
Correct.
Right.
This grant is from the Delta Regional Authority, not
Right.
from the FAA.
Right. So I thought it would be good to have President Chris give us this update. I don't believe we need any action from the court today because we anticipate that the grant money that was already applied for will cover the cost, we hope. Would say that the county did commit to a $40,000, $40,000+ match. And if we get to that point where it's needed, we will have to, deal with that. But some of that, much of that can be in-kind services that our road department can perhaps help participate in helping with the construction of the ditch. Is that fair to say?
And/or any on-site inspection, anything that could be in kind in lieu of cash. And we won't know that until the bids are open. And just to give y'all a brief update, we have directed Ron Johnson and Associates to make the amendment change to the contract document, update the Davis-Bacon Wage Act that goes along with it, and ask him to get it out for bid by mid-January. And then we would like to come back to the court early in February to get approval to award the contract. And at that time is when we will present to you what possibly the county's in-kind donations could be toward the project.
We've also consulted with Joanna Shake from GRAD, who helped us prepare the original grant, to make sure that she feels the DRA will be okay with this. She's in the process of reaching out to them with this potential timeline you just mentioned to make certain there aren't any hiccups on DRA's end, and we'll hopefully be hearing back shortly on that, but we are hopeful that they will not have a problem. In fact, we're considering that they will be glad we're moving forward. So give us an update. Keep us abreast of that too, please.
What size pipe are you proposing, are they proposing to put in down there?
He's evaluating between a 30 and 36 inch. He had to do a little engineering calculations, was gonna get back with me this week.
Okay.
The one other thing, Judge, I'd like to point out that both the city and the county have a great working relationship, not only with GRAD, but with the Delta Regional Authority. And I think what's important is that we're demonstrating the decision to move forward and finding an alternative solution to the problem and expending the grant funds.
Right.
So I think it's very important that we're demonstrating that.
And, with the ultimate goal of helping Geneva train better. And you have confirmed with Mr. Hubiak and the relevant authorities that we will be within our right-of-way in laying this pipe.
I checked with county staff last week. I know Randy Tassa did his background or his investigative of the deeds, et cetera, and there is sufficient right-of-way to install the pipe.
Deal. Any other questions or thoughts?
Oh, I just think that's a good thing. I'm glad that we came up with a solution to the problem that kept all of it on us to where that didn't affect anybody negatively, and we didn't get any bad press over that. I think I commend you for whoever come up with the idea of redoing this thing and coming up with a better idea.
Well, I think it was a group effort, and I think we were put in the position to find that solution, and probably should have thought about it earlier, but, a lot of times hindsight's 20/20. But
Right.
it's relatively going to be a simple solution to a larger problem.
And it's going to really help the the community of Geneva as well as the airport.
Yes.
So I don't see any, it's a win-win for everybody. I mean, we're not affecting anybody's land, and we're draining Geneva. And all my life, Geneva's been wet, and this probably won't take care of all of it, but it surely will help a lot.
Well, for you that don't know, and I've got to think a minute, the east side of Geneva drains to Canoe Creek.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can think as a bird flies, it's not that far to the mouth of Canoe Creek, but in creek miles, it's a long, long distance. And we looked at several alternatives years ago of trying to do a cut-through directly to the Ohio River.
I'm aware of that, uh-huh.
And because the elevation of the river port is so high, which you wouldn't think it is, but it is, it was gonna be a $5 million project.
Ooh,
So that's when we went back to the Pond Creek scenario and pursued that as the mechanism in which to drain the water.
where is the breaking point on this water where it goes, where it shifts different, goes different?
I think it's right in and around Trigg Turner Road there in that intersection
Okay.
of 136.
Okay.
Thank you for the update, and you're going to keep us in the loop as this timeline for the bids moves forward,
Yes.
correct?
Back in February.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, I'd like to invite Tim Eifler up to the podium. Tim is attorney at Stoll Keenan Ogden, who represents Hanson's Aluminum, and he's going to be giving us information on an application for an industrial revenue bond for Hanson's. Tim, welcome.
Judge, thank you very much. Members of the court. My name's Tim Eifler. I'm with Stoll Keenan Ogden, represent Hanson's Aluminum, and I'm sure you're all familiar with this proposed project in the county. What we're here today to ask you to do is to adopt a bond inducement resolution, which would preliminarily approve the issuance of a bond to finance the project, which basically is just a type of economic development incentive. You know, the key thing about these type of bonds, and I know the county has done other bonds like this before, but these are not a general obligation of the county. The county is not pledging its taxing authority. It doesn't in any way count against the county's borrowing capacity. The county is basically just acting as a conduit. And by issuing the bonds, what it will allow is a property tax abatement during the term of the bonds on the assets that are financed by the bonds. Under the statute that governs the bonds, the first step the company has to go through before it undertakes the project is to come before the court and get this inducement resolution. Basically, the statute says that if you want costs to be covered under the bond, you have to have this inducement resolution in place first. So that's basically what we're here for today. Let me talk a little bit about the project. I'll talk a little bit about the bonds and how they work, and then I'll go through the documents in front of you. So Hanson's Aluminum is it's an aluminum company based out of South Africa. It's family owned by the Hanson family, primarily Eric Hanson. This would be their first venture into the United States. Currently, they do sell into the United States, but all their product is made in South Africa. So this plant would allow them to manufacture here in Henderson County to supply automotive manufacturers in the U.S. It's an extrusion facility, an aluminum extrusion facility. What they're proposing is to acquire 10 acres, build a 75,000 square foot facility, and the construction period is probably going to be about a year to a year and a half. So the hope would be that this plant, you know, should things move fairly quickly, we're talking sometime in 2019, the plant will come online. The plant is anticipated to create 90 full-time jobs. Once we get to full employment, that's about $4.4 million in wages paid in the county. So let me talk about the IRBs, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Basically, the mechanism for the abatement is that the steps would be, of course, today we adopt this inducement resolution. The company goes ahead and gets a contract on the land, acquires the land, constructs the facility, buys the equipment, installs the equipment, and then we'll come back to the court again, and then we'll have the court adopt a bond ordinance, which will require 2 readings. And basically, at that point in time, the ordinance says, okay, the company said what it did what it said it was going to do, and now it's appropriate to go ahead and issue those bonds. At that point in time, the company will provide a cost detail of all the costs associated with building the facility, and then the bonds will be issued in that amount. The bonds can only be purchased by an affiliate of the company. Title to the assets that are financed by the bonds are transferred to the county, and then the county leases them back to the company during the term of the bonds. The sole source of repayment on those bonds are the lease payments by the company. So again, the county's not obligated to put any of its money toward the project. The county doesn't have to in any way repay those bonds. The company is the sole source of payment on those bonds, and the bonds are owned by an affiliate of the company. And you say, well, why do we do all this? Well, because that's the mechanism the legislature gave us to allow for this property tax abatement. I do a lot of them around the state. I can give you a lot of examples of them. Let me talk about the documents for a second. So what you have in front of you is the resolution, and that only requires one reading. And there are two exhibits to that. So today, if the court approves the inducement resolution, we'll execute the resolution as adopted by the fiscal court. And then there's a memorandum of agreement that basically memorializes the terms of the inducement resolution. That is, the company said it's going to undertake this project. The county acknowledges that the project's undertaken is going to create new job opportunities in the county. And at the appropriate time, the company's going to come back and request that the county issue these bonds. The third document is a pilot agreement. And it's pretty common with these industrial revenue bond issues that the company will make a payment to the school district that would make the school district whole. So you know, we've been in discussions with the county judge and the county attorney. They directed us to go talk to the school district, and we have done that. We've gone through the calculations for the pilot payment, and the school district is fine with that. So when we come back and we issue the bonds, one of the documents that will be executed as part of that bond issue will be the pilot agreement that we've worked out. And the pilot agreement basically requires the company to make annual payments to the school district during the term of the bonds to make the school district whole. I'm happy to answer any questions you have about the bonds.
A couple of notes I'd like to add is that it's encouraging for a couple reasons. Number one, this brings Hanson's even closer to breaking ground. Happy to see that. And Eric Hanson, in fact, will be back here with his general manager, Martin Aldworth, in January to take up even more business as we get closer to breaking ground out at the river port. So, again, this is another step in the development of this great project. And number two, I've noticed just in the last year, a couple three, I think, industrial revenue bonds that you've issued in the past have been paid off and were completed and worked out really well, both for the company and the county. Gibbs Die Casting, I believe, Audubon Metals, and just in the last couple weeks, Pittsburgh Tank and Tower all made the final payments on their bonds. And in each case, the companies use that money that they saved in the incentive to invest in their plants, hire more people, and stay put, which is the bottom line, you know, remain in our community. So these IRBs have worked out well for us so far, and happy to see Hanson's trying to do everything he can to get this thing off the ground and going. So with that, I'll entertain any questions or any questions for Tim.
Tim, just some of the high points I wanted to mention here. It's 21.2 million is the amount allowed in the resolution, and it's a 30-year term, which would be 30 years where there wouldn't be a county taxes paid on this, but the payments in lieu of taxes would be made. I just wanted to get that out
That's
there.
right. And I should mention where that number came from. The current estimated cost for the project is $18.4 million, and we typically will put in a 10% cushion in the inducement resolution just in case there's cost overruns associated with the project. But yeah, the project, as we said today, is estimated to cost about $18.4 million.
Can you explain the kind of like the 30 years? Because a lot of bonds are 20, but why we're 30, I guess?
Well, so yeah, let me talk about that. 30 years is the maximum term you can do for an industrial revenue bond. I would work on a lot of these around the state, and typically they are 30 years unless there's some other piece of the incentive package. For example, I did have a 20-year term bond down in Bowling Green, where Bowling Green actually provided the land for the facility as an additional incentive. I'll just go through a list of different bonds we've worked on recently that were 30 years, just to again, it is common. As you know, the bourbon industry has gone through pretty substantial expansion in the last 5 years. All of those bond issues have been 30 years. Woodford Reserve in not Bowling Green, in Woodford County, 3 bond issues there that were 30 years. Brown Foreman's building a Old Forester, kind of a tourist attraction in Louisville associated with that brand. That's a 30-year bond issue. We just worked on one in Williamstown for a bourbon warehouse that was 30 years. Churchill Downs, all of Churchill Downs is actually owned by Metro Louisville under a 30-year bond issue. The Courier Journal in Louisville, Lakeshore Learning, which was a distribution warehouse in Midway that closed last year. That was a 30-year bond issue. Tractor Supply in Franklin County, that was a number of years back, 30-year bond issue. Henderson County just did a 30-year bond issue for Florida Tile. Franklin County has done a number of them. We just closed on one in December for a German automotive manufacturer, Fritz Winter, 30 years. Have 2 of them in Lincoln County currently for a greenhouse growing operation from an Israeli group. Those are each 30 years. And then Hancock County regularly does 30-year bond issues. Century Aluminum, White Rock Pigments, which actually it's closing this month. Domtar, Southwire, all those are 30 years. So yes, I mean you can do them for less, but typically it's 30 years, which is the maximum.
And I think one of the things, I'm sorry, some of the ones we've had paid off recently have been more of the 15 or 20-year ranges, but they've also been smaller amounts as well, and existing projects that were expansions. So that could, make for some of that difference there as well. But this is definitely higher in dollar amount, which makes some sense.
And also, Hanson's always has the option of paying it off sooner than 30 years. It's just the maximum allowed under
That's right.
state statute.
Timmy, if you want any projection on what you think the interest rate might be on the bond issues, or you want to project?
Well, so that's a good question. Since these bonds are not really a traditional borrowing, the interest rate is the company's going to in effect own its own bonds. So we will typically set it at the lowest rate that's allowed under the Internal Revenue Code without having to impute interest. So I don't know what the current rate is now, but it's pretty low.
Yeah.
It's probably going to be 2% or something close to that.
Yeah. I mean, if I was going to do one, it'd be now.
Yeah. I mean, interest rates are definitely are going up. So what happens with the financing on these is the bonds kind of overlay whatever financing the company's going to get. So here, Hanson's going to go get traditional financing. Some financial institutions actually going to be the true lender for the project. And then the bonds are done after the project's been built and their permanent financing's in place. So it's not really the source of funds for the project itself. It kind of wraps around it.
Any other questions?
You were talking, I just wanted to clear, you were talking that they could be paid off early. There is no penalty for that.
That's right.
Other than the fact that they would lose their tax abatement, right?
That's correct.
So they would really
There
be
wouldn't be an
foolish
incentive
to
to
pay
do that.
off sooner than 30 years, right?
That's right.
That's what I was thinking now.
At 2%, you're not going to rush into
Any
it.
other questions? So, Mr. Gold, we have 2 duties to perform here. We read the resolution, the initial resolution, and then do we also have to have some sort of reading of the memorandum of agreement here?
I think all could be done by the summary, the pretty detailed summaries.
The summary on the page 1 here.
If you're okay with that, Ms. Baker.
I am.
I'm great with it.
I'm good.
Yeah, in lieu of reading the entire resolution, would everybody be okay with her reading the summary? Gentlemen?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Ms. Baker?
A resolution of the Fiscal Court of the County of Henderson, Kentucky preliminarily approving one or more industrial revenue bond financings for Hanson's Aluminum Extrusion LLC or any affiliate thereof, authorizing initiation of the acquisition, construction, equipping, and installation of an industrial project. agreeing to issue industrial revenue bonds in one or more series at the appropriate time or times, authorizing the execution and delivery of a memorandum of agreement and payment in lieu of taxes agreement in connection with the issuance of the bonds, and taking other preliminary actions.
Get a motion to approve that?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions? Please call for a vote.
Magistrate Putman.
Aye.
Magistrate Warren. Magistrate Alexander.
Aye.
Magistrate Todd.
Aye.
And Magistrate Wilkerson.
Thank you very much, Tim. I appreciate it.
Thank you,
Look-
Judge.
Look forward to moving forward on this project.
Thank
This time, I'd like to call Randy Tassa, County Codes Administrator, forward. He sent me an email last week on a situation that we have to address, and I'll let him kind of explain it. It's has to do with an appeals board that we used to share with the city, but looks like we're going to have to come up with our own board now, so I'll let Randy explain that.
Basically, what had happened is we used to piggyback off the city's Board of Housing Appeals, which we use that for when I cite somebody for our Henderson County Public Nuisance Unsafe Structures Ordinance. If we're going to condemn a property, correct a violation, we have to send them a notice for violation, and then they have the right to appeal that violation to a Board of Appeals. Since the city no longer has that board, they basically dissolved theirs because they have a different ordinance now. We have to come up with a Board of Appeals to address that, and so if anybody wants to file an appeal, they have to go in front of the board. We actually have someone who's first time in about 8 years wanting to file an appeal now. So that's how this kind of came up. I was unaware that the city had dissolved their Board of Appeals, and now that they have done that and I've discovered that, we have to try to come up with a board of our own. I contacted the members that used to serve for the city. Out of the 7 board members, I was able to get in contact with 5 of them. 2 of them left messages for and haven't heard back from, but the 5 I was able to get in contact with, so they would be interested in serving on this board if I'll choose to contact them and ask them to serve. They're all builders or architects or some type of contractors of some sort, or engineers that have something to do with the building industry, and so that's why they were on the city's Board of Appeals that we used to use. So as far as meeting dates and all that, we'd have to work out the meeting dates and the fees and stuff like that, as far as how much the board members are paid for their time. I think Steve maybe will help us out with getting some of that stuff together. I know some of these board members do serve on other boards. Some of them serve for the City Board of Zoning or the Planning Commission or stuff like that. So we want to check and make sure that whenever we set this monthly meeting date up, that it doesn't conflict with that, so that we can have a regular meeting if we have to.
And they may not necessarily have to meet monthly
Yeah, I'm
based
not sure
on
if they have to
the
have.
lack of frequency of
Yeah, I mean, this
appeals.
is first time in about 8 years this has happened, so to meet monthly, it would be kind of a waste of probably time and cost on everybody's part, but if there's a minimum requirement to meet, I don't know if there is or not, but yeah, I mean, this is, like I say, a unique situation.
You said there were possibly 7 members earlier. Do they have to be 7? Can not 5 do it? I mean, historically, the bigger the board, the harder it is to get anything done. Seems
This
like
is,
getting everybody there and then getting a quorum, that type of thing.
Our ordinance, Randy, this is under 176-6, right?
Yes.
That says no less than 5, and then 176-7 says the fiscal court shall appoint 2 or more alternate members who should be called on if there's absence or disqualification of a member, because it's entirely possible that some of these folks, could be involved in a project that may get appealed or something like that, since these,
see.
these folks are builders
I
and
see.
whatnot. So there would be no less than 5 members, and then at least 2 alternate members. So you'd have to designate those. And I would note, the interesting thing here is that unlike some of our other boards that are county judge appointments, this says the Henderson Fiscal Court shall appoint. And we've got somebody wanting to do an appeal now. So that does put a little bit of a fire under us a little bit to get this done.
Can you remind me of the 5 that have committed already to serve?
Mac Arnold, Matt Calvert, Jim Meadows, Tim Skinner and Hugh Stone also that they'd be interested in serving on this board. Mac Arnold is a home builder. He serves on the Planning Commission and City Board of Zoning. Matt Calvert's engineer. He serves on the City Board of Zoning, or City Code Board. Jim Meadows, I believe, is an electrician, or former electrician. Tim Skinner, architect. He serves on the City Code Board. And then Hugh Stone is a builder also, and he's, I don't think he's on any boards at this time.
I initially talked with Randy and Mr. Gold about appointing the members of the Board of Zoning Adjustment, the County Board of Zoning Adjustment, to serve as this board as well, to try to maybe piggyback on that and save us some time because it was pressing. But the statute does require some experience in the questions at hand, and not all of the Board of Zoning Adjustment members have experience with building questions. So I think that solution maybe was not going to work. So, Randy and Mr. Gold, how much time do we have before we have to have this board hear this appeal?
The ordinance says that, they're supposed to file an appeal within 20 days. I talked to the property owner who's interested in filing the appeal and told him that basically until we form this board that we're not going to act on anything, as far as basically this kind of gives him a little time to, before we get this board set up to file the appeal. So we're not able to, until we get this board set up and he files the appeal, we're not able to act on it, so we can't basically condemn it or tear the structure down until he has that right to file an appeal. So basically it's kind of dead in the water until we get this board.
Has the appeal actually been filed yet?
He has not filed the appeal yet, just because
Okay.
to me, was no point of taking the appeal yet until
Sure.
we have actual board to turn it into.
So 176-11 does say the board shall meet upon notice of the chairman within 20 days of a filing of appeal or at stated periodic meetings. So that's something we'll need to have it within 20 days of them actually filing. So if they went ahead and filed now and there was an appointment, a resolution or a vote done at the next fiscal court meeting, we would be within those 20 days. They'd have to meet pretty quickly after that, though.
Okay.
Make sense?
So what I'd like to do with the court's approval is go ahead and reach out to the 5 who have committed, try to identify 2 more to serve as alternates under the statute, and then get their confirmation, work with Randy to get their confirmation, and then at the next fiscal court meeting, go ahead and vote on establishing this panel. And at that point, hopefully we'll have a little bit of structure. Steve, if you can develop whatever structure the panel needs to follow.
And the ordinance
thereafter.
is pretty clear on most of that. They'll elect their own chairman, and they'll have a secretary of the board. Randy, as the codes administrator, actually serves as a non-voting ex officio member of that board. So it's, it gets into it pretty well. And I think especially if these folks are the ones that served on the city board, they're going to be able to go into it, pretty quickly since, they've been there and done that.
Steve,
should be pretty
is
good.
there anything on the regulation of advertising, since this is a somewhat new board? Do we have to advertise that this has taken place since it's not a continuation?
Well, no, the board has theoretically been in existence
Okay.
because the ordinance has been on the books for quite a while. It's just that there were essentially coexisting as both the city
Okay.
board and the county board. When the city dissolved theirs, the group, although they're still kind of the county board, it just makes sense to go ahead and recognize that, do reappointments of all of them to just a county board. But the statute's been there for goodness knows how long at this point. It's
That's about 8 years, I would guess.
okay.
Makes sense. So with your okay, we'll go ahead and reach out to these folks and see if we can get this board reformed, and then take a vote next fiscal court meeting, get them underway. Okay. Thank you very much, Randy. I appreciate it. We thought we would also give you an update on the question of the Tourist Commission merger. Since we met last, the City-County Cooperative Group did meet and discuss the ongoing requirements to merge the Tourist Commission, the County Tourist Commission, into a City and County Tourist Commission, and we had a good discussion at that meeting. And We got confirmation shortly after that meeting that the Tourist Commission Board of Directors was supportive of this merger, and now both Don Kelsey and Steve Gold are working on an interlocal agreement to codify this formal relationship, and be coming back soon to us to review that and go ahead and vote on it. Just wanted to give you a quick update there. I think we are on the path to getting that done and being prepared for whatever happens next with City County Tourist Commission. And Steve, anything you want to add to that?
Their target date, they would like to start July 1 with the transition of the new fiscal year. However, since it's an interlocal agreement, it's got to go up to Frankfurt and be approved by Department of Local Government. Sometimes that can take 3 or 4 months, so Dawn and I are going to try to get something together to bring back before the City-County Study Group and then to both the Fiscal Court and the Board of Commissioners as soon as possible, so we can go ahead and get that sent up to Frankfurt. But we're going to try to hit that target date of July 1 for them, but it may end up being a moving target based on what goes on in Frankfurt and how long it takes them to approve the interlocal.
Any questions? All right, moving forward in the agenda, you'll notice that county attorney payments is coming a little sooner in the agenda than normal, but I'll remind you that a rookie put this agenda together. So we will go ahead and do county attorney payments, and Steve, I'll leave it to you.
Got 3 checks today, Judge. First, health, dental, and life insurance in the amount of $244.08, $1,266.57, and jail fees collected in the amount of $383.81, for a total today of $1,894.46, and bringing the fiscal year total to $67,910.58.
Can I get a motion to approve those?
Second.
Thank you.
Motion is second. Any other questions? Please vote.
Magistrate Putman.
Aye.
Magistrate Warren.
Aye.
Magistrate Alexander.
Aye.
Magistrate Todd.
Aye.
And Magistrate Wilkerson.
Aye.
You also have in your packet the quarterly report from the Henderson County Detention Center. And Jailer Brady, if you'd like to comment at all, I invite you to come up and offer whatever you'd like.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Does anybody have any questions on the quarterly report?
The only question I had, Jailer Brady, was the census, and I know we're consistently running pretty heavy, over 700. Does that give you any pause about any repercussions that could bring back on jail being a little overcrowded that way, or?
Every jail in the state's overcrowded.
Yeah. Okay.
They opened the private prison, but they had to move people from LaGrange to that prison because of some issues that they had in LaGrange.
Gotcha.
So they said they're supposed to open the other 2 in the next couple of months.
Really?
Is that going to affect us negatively?
Yes and no. It'll take a lot of the people that we have housed in our jail that we can't work and they won't classify, and they're just sitting there. Basically, they're just doing their time in a county jail when they could be in a prison somewhere doing programs. But this will allow us to bring in other people that would benefit us once those inmates are moved.
So, we historically been kind of worried about the private jails when they going to take away from the county, and actually they get paid a higher fee, correct?
They do. The Jailers Association has a meeting this month, and they're supposed to have a copy of the contracts.
Okay.
I'll also note on a topic that we recently discussed that Bill Markwell has filed for re-election for Commonwealth's attorney, and in the story in the Gleaner, he committed to examining closely the rocket docket concept with Mr. Gold, and it's good to see, so maybe that will help a little bit.
I hope so.
See if that goes well.
We had a real good talk about that recently, and I think he's more aware of the details of the program now and how it would work, and I think we're going to be moving toward getting something that is really going to be helpful for folks around here, and will help the jail out a little too.
I hope so. Today, we're under 700 though. So.
Any other questions for Jailer Brady?
How's the, maybe you're going to say construction because I've been out. How's the construction?
Get an update on the kitchen construction?
We have a meeting this Thursday morning. You're all welcome to attend. It's 8 o'clock. and they were working on the floors over the holiday weekend. They were there bright and early this morning and hopefully getting ready to get the walk-ins installed. We're waiting on Woodard's right now.
Any other comments from the members of the jail committee?
Yep, we're good.
Okay, thank you very much. We need a motion to accept the quarterly report.
So move.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other questions? Please take a vote.
Magistrate Putman.
Aye.
Magistrate Warren.
Aye.
Magistrate Alexander.
Aye.
Magistrate Todd.
Aye.
And Magistrate Wilkerson.
Thank you. I'll call Treasurer Ryder up to the stand. We have one claim, I understand.
From the LGEA fund to the Smith Mills Volunteer Fire Department in the amount of $7,870. This is a budgeted appropriation for reimbursement of their annual insurance policy.
And I think after this payment is made, there may only be one or two
think
left
two.
to reimburse their insurance. That is going well. The anecdotally, the VFD funding plan is going as planned, and they've even begun to make their contributions to City County Rescue as required in the ordinance that we passed. So I'll entertain a motion to pay this claim.
So move.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other questions? Ms. Ryder? Please vote.
Magistrate Putman.
Aye.
Magistrate Warren.
Aye.
Magistrate Alexander.
Aye.
Magistrate Todd.
Aye.
And Magistrate Wilkerson.
Thank you. This time, if any members of the audience would like to say anything for the good of the county, the podium is yours. Not, we'll take it to Magistrate Putman. Give us an update. Any thoughts?
Thank you, Judge. Just glad to have Magistrate Warren back with us, and it looks like he's mending pretty well. So hope everyone had safe and happy holidays, and all good in the 4th. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you. Master Warren, I know it's not easy for you to speak right now, but would you like to say anything for good of the county?
Well, I want to thank everybody for your text messages and your phone calls. When you're laying in bed, for as long as I was, you get tired of counting ceiling tile, wall tile, anything. So if you ever have a friend or relative that goes into an extended stay, just that contact really makes a difference. So thank you all for what you did, and I appreciate that. And as a team, as y'all have said, I think we can do a lot of more good things, and I look forward to it. So thank you.
Welcome back. Magistrate Alexander.
No, just everything's good in the 3rd, and George is doing better than I expected. He's
Yeah.
getting around pretty good, you know. So
Don't kick as high as I used
yeah,
to.
well, yeah, you'll be able to kick for long. No, everything's good on my end.
And I do appreciate the time and effort you put into helping us work through this Geneva drainage project. I know that it's been in the works for a long time, and it seemingly hit some dead ends, but I think we've reached a decent solution here, and it will benefit that community. And,
Yes, that was really a good sign. If we don't get anything else done, that right there is important, and I'm glad we got it done. I hope we get everything done, but that's a big step.
Thank you for participating in that discussion. Magistrate Wilkerson.
Everything's good in 5th, and good to have you back, George.
Glad to be.
Master Todd.
Same here with you, back George, and everything's good in the 2nd District. Thank you, sir. Happy New Year to everybody. Hope you have a good year.
I don't know if people are aware, but you are now president of the Kentucky Commissioners and Magistrates Association, so you'll be continuing your frequent trips up to
Wow.
Frankfurt. Look forward to working with you on what should be a very important session for cities and counties.
Yeah. Coming up.
It's good to know that Henderson County and Northwest Kentucky will be well represented in these discussions with state organizations. So I appreciate your service, and again, pray for us as we try to help the legislature remember that their actions have huge impact locally, and we're going to try to make sure that cities and counties can come out as benevolently as possible on these issues. So thanks again, and hopefully we'll see each other traveling back and forth on I-64. Mr. Gold.
All is good, Judge. Again, want to thank Bill for all that he's doing on helping with our remodeling. They did a whole lot of cutting up our office, cutting in windows and doors, places where there were just walls over the holiday. So thank you for that. And George, we were flying the. I came in later after it was done. Yeah. I wasn't going to be there when all that was flying around. I was going to let the dust settle a little bit. But it does look good, or it's at least a good start. Hopefully, we get it to where it is looking good. And George, we were flying the missing man formation without you, but you were always in our thoughts and continue to be. So hope you get better and get back to where you are, kicking as high as you used to.
Thank you. And 2018 is rolling right along here. First day back, fiscal court meeting, very, very first things. Very interesting, but thanks for all that you do. We look forward to a great year. A lot of good things happening in this meeting already. And looking forward to good things happening in the county. So with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
A motion and a second. All those in favor can leave.